Michael Verney, 3 out of the 7 county finals that went ahead at Hurling over the weekend went to extra time. That's a fair idea. That'll give you a fair idea of the tension, the level nature of a lot of these games, the excitement. Because, like, I watched the Galway hurling final yesterday, I watched the Cork hurling final, and it was nothing but excitement. St Thomas's beat Turlockmore by a couple of points, come through for the 3 in a row. Blackrock won their first title in 18 years, and the drama was unbelievable. And just a quick run over who else won county titles. Clonkill won in Westmeath. You had Conahy Shamrocks winning the junior down in Kilkenny. You also had Wolf Tones winning in Longford, Carrick winning in Leitrim, Satanta in Donegal, and Knockbridge winning in Louth. But just to start off the weekend in general, even though to tune into all these different streams, it's some exciting way to put down a Saturday or a Sunday on this occasion.
Unbelievable, yeah. I was in Tullamore yesterday at the Offaly football final working at it, and you're dipping in and out of Twitter and dipping in and out of conversations with people and trying to find out what's going on and I was listening to a bit of Midlands radio and I had RTE radio on as well. There was so many different things happening, and I don't know, the whole thing of games going to extra time just makes it so much more dramatic even as well, and the fact that the games are going to be done are all completed on the one day. The drama was unbelievable. As I said, we've had a load of extra time finals. And even a couple of penalties and bits and pieces in finals and stuff as well. But it was brilliant. Another brilliant weekend. And despite the conditions being absolutely atrocious, the quality managed to remain quite high. And I suppose one thing, when it's raining, the drama will always increase almost when it's raining. It gets it just adds a bit more to it. There's something about, it's like I've often said to you about, like what do I think a good snooker match is? When they make mistakes, I love that. And it's when matches, when silly mistakes are made, almost is when you get the most drama, and that was definitely the case yesterday. And over Saturday as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Michael Verney's wearing the Galway jersey here. There was a Galway county final. I'm kitted out in Donegal attire because of Satanta's success over the weekend. And obviously there's plenty of clubs around the country. If you fancy getting something that's similar to your club colours, there's plenty of clubs that have the maroon or the green and gold over the country. So go to orgaretro.com and use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off. The St Thomas's versus Turlockmore game, it was unbelievably exciting. You remember earlier in the season when Castlegar played Sarsfields, I was on here and I have to say I was anything but impressed by the quality of fare, and fairly much said as much. This game was quite exciting. You had two teams which, it was fairly evident these are the cream of the crop in Galway this year. I mean, Turlockmore have been a coming force for a long time. St Thomas is looking for that 3 in a row. And it was windy conditions, made it very, very difficult, but a really exciting game. And St Thomas is there for a team that had won no county title up until 2012. Geez, they've firmly established themselves now.
They really, really have. A couple of things about this game before we go into the game. I love the fact that the game was played in Kenny Park in Athenry, because that is the traditional home of Galway hurling. Even listen to David Collins from Mellows, a former Galway player, talking about, like, nobody likes hurling in Pearse Stadium. He said that straight out. He said basically you're going to get a game of two halves every day you go down there, just because of the nature of being beside the sea. And it's a pity we weren't able to have, the 7,000 or 8,000 in Athenry that you would normally have. But it was great to have it back in its kind of traditional home. Just on Thomas's, since winning their first one in 2012, they've been unreal, really. They won the All-Ireland obviously that year. They've probably disappointed in an All-Ireland final maybe since an All-Ireland semi-final maybe against Borris last year. But really, when the game came down to when the nuts and bolts of it, when they needed to be won yesterday, they hit the last 3 points and closed out the game and showed that bit of experience that we talked about in the preview show. I was that's why I went for Thomas's as one half of the lock of the week. I just thought that bit of experience against a side maybe that hasn't been in a final, and a lot of the time with teams that haven't won it for a good while, you do need to, I know it's a cliche, but you do need to lose one to win one. Like, how much will Turlock have learned from that experience? And maybe how much even they were outworked in the second half by Thomas's. Thomas is just that extra bit of experience, and a couple of big players coming up trumps when it really mattered was just what tipped the balance. From what I saw, was a really, really exciting game, especially in the conditions.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of white line fever here, which you see sometimes with teams that aren't used to being there. I mean, St Thomas's they weren't going to panic. That's why they got the last 3 scores of the game, whereas Turlockmore were hitting wide after wide. I mean, Fergal Moore, who, if we're to be honest about it, he dominated his matchup at midfield against Daithi Burke. So you've got the Galway All-Ireland winning captain from 2017. It's definitely been massively overshadowed by a former Galway captain who is now 38 years of age, still in good nick, popped a couple of points, probably hit a few more wides as well. Like, that was very
just on that chain as well, it shows what we know. We said Fergal Moore would be the last person to pick up Daithi Burke last week.
Yeah, and even now, I still can't get my head around why you would do that. But obviously Fergal Moore is the sort of player who's able to tie someone down, he's able to mark them. But you would have thought out midfield, this would play right into Daithi Burke's hands. It's a real fish out of water sort of vibe. But we couldn't have been more wrong. But maybe part of that too is that Turlough Moore knew that Daithi Burke wasn't right for this game. And anyone who watched the game, he played, came off just before half time. And I think he was getting onto Franny Ford. He wanted to come back on with a couple of minutes to go. He came in and sure, look, let's be honest, he didn't impact the play in any way, shape or form. And if the manager knew he wasn't right, you can understand why you'd take the gamble. But at the same time, if you were someone else on the panel and you're seeing a lad going back on with one leg and you've been training all year, I'd be fairly ticked myself.
Yeah, you'd be sick, but you don't have 4 All-Stars in your back pocket, and you don't have, like,
well, he didn't win him on one leg. Did he win him on one leg?
No, but if he wanted it that bad to come back on, and he's captain as well, Shane, I do think that's different. Like, I just think, like, especially after that ball he caught in the semi-final to set up that goal, I do think there was a chance that he could do something even on one leg that others mightn't be able to do.
Yeah, all right. Look, one thing though, in terms of like players impressing with injury, Oisin Flannery, I think he was a bit of a doubt for St. Thomas's, and he played corner forward. He scored 3 points during the game. He was good when the ball came into him, but he had his hamstring heavily strapped up, and several times you could see him grabbing his hamstring. And obviously I was talking about playing a final with a hamstring recently, and you can kind of get through it even though you feel like this thing could explode any second here, but he was good. Other players that stood out, do you know what? Not too many in the forward line. Brendan Farrell came on, big man, came in full forward. He scored a point. He set up another one. He was moving the ball around nicely. Do you know what? You probably wouldn't say too many lads would blow you away for Thomas. Shane Cooney was sweeping up a load of ball. Fintan Burke, really impressive at full back. Now, I think he kind of tends to exaggerate fouls and stays down for treatment when there's absolutely no need for it. I think he's a very good player and prospect, but he really frustrates me when I see that, because every time you're like, oh, here he is going in looking to get his arm in under a lad's hurley and then give it the whole waving thing to try and get a free. Then he's staying down for 2 minutes, or he's flying when someone gives it out tackle. Like, he's a really good player, but please stamp that out because it's driving me insane, and I will comment on it every time you do it.
Just on that as well, I kind of compared him to Pádraig Maher before, and it sounds like the couple times I've seen him, like, he does, his arms are going everywhere when he has the ball, and kind of like Pádraig Maher has made that his thing almost when he has the ball, and I don't know how many feet frees he's bought with it as well, but it'll only take I'd say Fintan Burke, like if he's going in with Galway this year, I don't think he'll be at the same kind of crack with Galway. It's a bit different.
Well, he was against Robbie O'Flynn. Robbie O'Flynn got a red card for Cork during the league for the exact same thing. Absolutely exaggerating a free, and you'd swear he got clotheslined by the neck. It's
kind of more in the public consciousness now. It's like DJ Carey's steps. Everyone was giving out about DJ taking like 10 steps back in the day, and then referees started to realise he was, and people started blowing him, and he stopped taking 10 steps. And even with Shefflin throwing the ball on the ground and running onto it, once your kind of tricks come into the public consciousness, you need to stop them and probably try something else. But there's no doubting the physicality he brings to it. There's no doubting the solidity he brought to that position. Like, that was a problem area for Thomas's, probably going all the way back to when Colin Fennelly ran riot in the All-Ireland Club final a couple of years ago, and he's just been outstanding since he went in there.
Yeah, no, he wasn't up against the greatest marker. I don't want to name names, but he very clearly won his battle with a player that probably wasn't quite at his level. Now, he's a very good player, I've said it, I want to repeat it because people will obviously go away saying I'm just giving out about him, but I definitely think that's an element that he needs to stamp out of his game. Conor Cooney got a goal very early into the game. I think it was like a minute and a half slow starting the stream, and there was already a goal up. And that was the thing about Turlough. I was like, they haven't panicked here. They've conceded 1-1 early on, and many teams would kind of fold in that sort of a scenario. We even saw with Glen Rovers and Blackrock, the underdogs back in their first final in a few years, that maybe they would fold after going 3-0 behind, but they didn't. Which was a very interesting feature of this game, actually. At one stage, there was a bit of there was something or other going on whereby some of the selectors came in off the sideline. TJ Reid, the former Limerick manager, he's part of the backroom team at St. Thomas's, and he came in and he was giving his spiel, and then the Turlockmore, one of the backroom team, Barry Cullinan, he comes in and he actually starts hunting TJ Ryan away from whatever Shamazel was going along, and you can see TJ just backpedaling. It was actually kind of comical stuff.
Sure, that's kind of like that's the mill and the hill in 2006 almost with Peter Caffrey and John Morrison, and then even I remember there was a couple of weeks ago actually, Drumcullen played Kinnity in a senior hurling championship game, B championship group game up in Clarine, and Clarine's a real kind of small kind of agricultural venue, I'd say, but Drumcullen came in first and were warming up, or not warming up, they were getting changed underneath the scoreboard at the very far end, and Kinnity were the other side of the pitch, getting ready, getting changed or whatever, but Drumcullen were the end of the scoreboard, and you think they're going to warm up that end. That's going to be their end. Well, when the Kinnity lads came out, they started warming up the scoreboard end. And all of a sudden, all the Drumcullen lads started warming up that end as well. So about 40 minutes before the match, you had two teams warming up on top of each other and lads running into each other. And, nobody wants to take a back step or anything like that. That's a classic GA thing. Like, if Drumcullen won that game, but if they had conceded their ground, shall we say, and gone to the other end of the pitch and they'd been beaten in the game, people would have said, they were bet before the match, the ball was thrown in, they gave up before or whatever. And that's just a classic GA thing, and no one ever wants to give anybody any little iota of an advantage or anything like that, but it can lead to some hilarious kind of circumstances.
Yeah. Just back to this game again, Conor Cooney, he got that goal early on. He won a few great balls in the air. He knocked over his free, so obviously he did fairly well from that point of view. So a certain amount of the game he passed him by at the same time. Fintan Burke, as I said, he played well. Shane Cooney played well. A couple other forwards chipped in, but plenty of the Thomas's lads I wasn't blown away by. And obviously there's the occasion, the fact that Turlockmore are good. But there's a few players for Turlockmore that I think Shane O'Neill, the Galway manager, would be very interested in. Kevin Hussey, who had been on the panel in the past, he was very good at wing back, carrying the ball forward time after time after time. Sean Lennon, he was absolutely excellent. I think he finished up with 4 points from play. He was kind of out in the wing forward, I would say, most of the time for Turlockmore. Maybe he went in and out at times. It can be hard to tell in the stream. Had a couple of wides laid on, but I wouldn't necessarily hammer him from that, because he was very good and carried the game to St. Thomas's when Turlockmore were sort of struggling. And there's no doubt that loss of Daithi Burke took an awful lot from them. Just even with regard to Daithi Burke going off injured and Fintan Burke playing full back in the game, Franny Ford, he had said after the game that you could be looking at a serious injury for Daithi Burke.
Yeah, he said he was touch and go all week. These are direct quotes from Franny. He said he did have to go off. He was worse than expected, but he was adamant that he'd go in for the last 5. So we threw him in on the edge of the square at that stage. He's a serious enough injury, though. It's a fresh injury. It really only came to light at the end of the football match. So when they were beaten by my lock, Corrafinmore, the week before, it was really late in the week before we realised the chances are that he wouldn't be able to get 60 minutes in. So he hadn't the opportunity at that stage to get a scan. He'd have to get a scan this week, but it's serious enough for Galway, I would say. It's a calf injury by all accounts, Shane. Is it a calf?
It is, yeah. He had his calf all strapped up when he came back on, yeah.
Like, you're looking at a calf probably tear, realistically. And it's quite a slow one, a very, very slow one, and a very frustrating one. I've had a few little calf injuries, things like that, and if it's a tear, it could take a good bit of time. And then you're thinking, you can't think like this, but you're thinking like he probably put his Galway season in jeopardy by coming back on or even playing in the first place. But it shows you how much he wanted to play, obviously. But big kind of. It's a big doubt going into the championship now for Shane O'Neill. He would have probably had, I don't know if we've talked before, I don't know if he would have had him penciled in at full back or whether he would have had him penciled in at midfield or wherever, but he might have to cross him out now at this stage, because he's probably going to be under big pressure to play any part of Galway. Yeah,
and you're looking at that semi-final against Wexford, and it's not too far away. One thing I'll say also about playing full back, if that's where he does decide to throw him in, because you know the way when we were talking about the prospect of Fintan Burke jumping into full back for the championship, what we were thinking is you'd like to give him a few league games, see how he goes there, and he hasn't that opportunity now. Obviously Grode McInerney had plenty of the league there, so he kind of knows the ropes at this stage. But do you want him back at centre back, or was the plan to have Daithi Burke out centre back or thereabouts in the field, and then you'd almost be like, we've still found a nice balance. If Daithi Burke is kind of more or less 50-50 and they do chance him, full back is the last place you want to put or you want to be if you've got an injury issue somewhere in your legs, or because it's just that constant twisting and turning, players testing you out. If I was Wexford, I'd be thinking, let's put someone pacey, whether it's Cathal Dunbar, whether it's even David Dunn, whoever it might be.
Yeah, Cathal Dunbar was the one that jumped to mind for me straight away.
Yeah, you want to test out the injury.
He'll make you go cross and back. He'll make you do things. Conor McDonald is really dangerous full forward, but a different type. He's going to want a high ball. Dunbar could have the legs run off Burke before he even gets a chance to get into the game. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. Now, I will say this: his powers of recovery in the past are absolutely phenomenal. Remember, he played the drawn game against Clare when, by all accounts, he had no right to play and was playing on one leg with an ankle injury as well. I've seen guys like this, like even like Sean Ryan in the own club in Burr. I never seen anything like it. He could pull his hamstring one week and be fit to play 10 days later, and you think he's dislocated his shoulder on a Friday and he could be back training on the Tuesday. Some lads have an unbelievable powers of recovery. Daithi Burke obviously has shown this in the past, but it's definitely a worry for Shane O'Neill. And I think the only thing, the solace that he will have is that he got to go into Gerard McInerney fullback during the league, and he got Shane Cooney looked at centre back, and he even got Fintan Burke looked at wing back. So the fact that he was out without Daithi Burke during the league might actually come back to help him now.
And I remember Pádraig Mannion was started fullback against Seamus Callan those few years ago when Callan obviously had a huge game at Croke Park. He's a different player now, so maybe Pádraig Mannion could step back at this point. They would miss his leadership from the half back line, whether he's centre back or wing back, but it's not like they'll have zero options.
No, they'll have loads of options. There's loads of defenders there that are reasonably interchangeable. Like if Wexford do try and play someone like Cathal Dunbar in full forward, a real mobile player like Pádraig Mannion, or maybe they'd even put someone like Aidan Hart back in, who's mobile in there as well. So they have plenty of options anyway. It's something probably that Shane O'Neill could have done without. Needless to say, you could always do without missing, a 4-time All-Star defender.
Yeah, absolutely. So congrats to St. Thomas's there. They've completed the 3 in a row. In the Cork Senior Hurling Championship, Blackrock finished up county title winners after beating Glen Rovers 426 to 418 after extra time. As we said, 3 games went to extra time. This was one of them. This was an unbelievably exciting game, I have to say. Like, it was, Glen Rovers went 3-0 ahead at the start, and you were thinking maybe Blackrock are going to freeze on the big stage here. They went 5-3 ahead. It was 12-7 ahead at half time, and you were thinking there's a fair chance that Blackrock could run away with this. But of course, straight away started the second half. I think you have Simon Kennefick, or Simon Kenneflick as I'm going to call him at this stage. Lovely ball over to the top, and he hit it first time. This game went all the way to extra time, and then obviously it was from there on that Blackrock took over. I think they scored 10 points in a row, but then of course Glen Rovers had it back down to 3 again before ultimately Blackrock pulled away. Exciting stuff, and obviously it's huge to win your first county title in 18 years. Like, they're the record holders now with 33 titles. I think they're after pushing 6 ahead of Glen Rovers at this stage. But like, for a team that's used to winning them 18 years is just a huge gap.
Oh, sure, it's a famine for a club like that. I know in Borough we haven't won one in 12, having won 4 Club All-Irelands. Like, it's a long time. So they'll be delighted to be back on top. I didn't see much of this game, Shane. Was Patrick Horgan held to any extent? Was he as influential as he normally would be, or? Well,
he was influential. Now, what he scored from play in total was 4 points, and a couple of them were things of beauty, and he scored a penalty. I think everyone knew he was going to absolutely bury the penalty. Probably, like, I often wonder, do you think Glenn need to get more ball into his hand, or he needs to find a way to get into the game a little bit more? He was good, and same in the semi-final. I think it was a case where he'd scored 4 from play, 14 overall, and he was good. But probably you'd be looking to get a little bit more out of him. Same from, and like, he was still good, like, but I'm judging him by Patrick Horgan standards. If this was a normal club player who gave that performance, you'd say, geez, they were absolutely brilliant. Simon Kennefick got a couple of goals. Probably wanted a small bit more from him, even though, that seems a bit harsh when he scored 2, but it's just, that he's got an awful lot of quality and talent, and I just wonder, will he step up to the Galway stage? Mark Dooley started to come into the game big time. He was wearing number 12. He scored 1-2, I think, in the second half. Dean Brosnan, he's on the Cork panel, probably expected a little bit more from him. There was a couple of players in and around the middle area of the Glen team, and I felt the game passed them by, or their handling wasn't great, or whatever. For Blackrock, it was all about the subs as far as I'm concerned, because they really delivered, and Fergal Ryan was asked about this, and the thing was, they scored 3-5, which is fairly sensational going from any bench, isn't it?
Oh, sure. That's a match winner there. There's no, like, 3-5 off your bench. That's a dream scenario. If you're a manager, you want lads coming in that are going to change the game, and they clearly did.
Yeah, and I threw it out on Twitter during the match saying the Blackrock subs have fairly changed this game. I'll sort of adjust how I had that on the screen there. And Jamie Wall, who of course is involved down there in Cork and with college teams as well with Mary I, he goes Blackrock's second team are Premier Intermediate, albeit relegated this year. Great standard to be plucking subs from. And Colin O'Brien followed in with, like Kildangan a few years ago, second team is Senior B. Great advantage when subs are playing at such a high level. And just to kind of run down the players that did most of the damage, Daithi came in, and I think when Blackrock were struggling in normal time, he took the bull by the horns, soloed through, just went straight up the guts of the Glen defence, buried one into the corner. Robbie Cotter, he came on as well, did the damage, found the net. And Fergal Ryan said, we had a long debate about this on Wednesday night down in Blackrock Hurling Club and whether we would start certain lads. The view we took was in the last couple of games we got a massive bounce from the subs when they came on. The same happened today. I mean, you know yourself, there are sometimes when a manager, and obviously it's the worst thing you can do as a manager, is you turn around and look at the bench and you almost look back and go, geez, I've got nothing here. You know, it's the worst thing, because you as a sub, if you see this, you're like, geez, why am I even bothering talking out here?
And you always do see it, because you're looking for the manager. Is he gonna bring me on, or what's he gonna do, or whatever? And when you see that, and he doesn't say, John, come down, or Jimmy, come down, and he just looks back, you're kind of heartbroken, really. So when he looked back yesterday, he obviously saw a load of really, really good options, and like that was really the difference.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And you know, I think Glen Rovers more or less had it won at one stage. I'm trying to think who someone had knocked over a point, and then Daithi, who had mentioned, he knocked over a sideline from the near side. You know, so if you're a left-sided player and you're cutting it from the right-hand side of the field, you've narrowed the angle as much as possible. Especially, I think it was around the 14 or the 21, cut it over, an absolute beauty. And what I couldn't understand was just beforehand, I think it was possibly Alan Connolly, who will talk about the full forward for Blackrock. He kind of soloed in, tried to knock a ball across. Now, Stephen MacDonald, a captain for Cork just a couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure he could have just put his hand on it and sort of run the ball out, and obviously he's got loads of pace. But it was around the 14 or whatever, the ball's been hand-passed across, edge of the 14, and he just doubled on it. Put straight out of play for DC to end up hitting what was the leveller at that stage. And then, so I just found that a little bit hasty, you know, lacking calmness. But then, of course, Horgan knocked over an apparent winner. Beautiful score from, I think, around 50, 60 yards, something like that. But then Connolly won a free up the other end and levelled it, sending it to extra time. And then, whatever it was, within 2.5 minutes of extra time starting, the Rock were 5 points ahead. There had been, I think it was an own goal from Robert Downey, who was really up and down in this game. We all know he's a Cork prospect. Some parts of the game he was excellent. Some parts he was really, really disappointing. And I mentioned Robbie Cotter. He scored 2-2 when the Rock were wobbling really badly, having been 10 up to go just 3 up. He was massive at that point. But Alan Connolly, he looks like a serious player. Started the game, he hit the butt of the post, and you're thinking maybe it's going to be one of those days. He ended up with 13 points, 3 of them from play. There was one stage when I can't remember the name of the corner back for Glen Rovers, but he was actually fully pulling the jersey off him, and it should have been a clear free to Blackrock. Ref let it on. Now people were going insane about Colin McAllister on Twitter, and then Patrick Horgan nearly got a goal at the other end. I think he ended up missing the chance altogether. But stuff like that can turn the game. But this Alan Connolly, I think the secret is out.
Yeah, without a doubt. I actually I was tagged in Twitter. Sean Collier from Laois there tagged me on Twitter to a clip that Blackrock had up on March 22nd of Alan Connolly doing basically 30 seconds. How many balls can you get ball to hand? And he did 33 in 30 seconds. And it's actually like poetry in motion watching it. Like, risk the absolute kill for. The second the ball comes, he's gone. And everybody kind of got a glimpse of that yesterday. He looks like an unbelievable prospect. Don't know what it is about a Cork just being able to produce these unbelievably risky hurlers, particularly up front. Just a quick thing to go back to Colin McAllister, my favourite referee of them all. as a defender, he just lets the game go. I love it. And you actually think, I remember playing Limerick one time, it was Mark and Andrew a shock to see, and he was an all-star that year. We played him in the qualifiers, and McAllister was refereeing it, and he let you away with murder. It was unreal. He's a real defenders referee, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, one thing I would say when I came away from that game, it's something that often frustrates me when I watch certain teams. There's, if you're let's say you're coming out to the full back line, or you're coming out corner back, and I'm standing there on the wing, with my back to the direction I'm playing, I'm facing my own goal, and you hit me a ball. How should you hit it to give me the best chance to be able to do something with it?
I would say it should be obviously to my hand, but I should be almost be able to turn as I'm getting it. So I'm not. If you give the ball low on the ground, okay, you're going to have to touch it. You're going to have to get it into your hand. There could be someone behind you. You could get robbed or something like that. I think it should be up here, and it should be nearly side on almost.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is down to your own body, or my body position as I'm receiving it from you. I should be on the half turn as I'm about to get it. But it drives me insane watching it. And I was throughout this game, and I'd love to know what Cork people think, and people from other counties as well. The amount of times that a cornerback or a defender would come out, hit a low scuttery ball in front of a slow, low scuttery ball. So me as the guy receiving possession, I'm stationary, I'm waiting for the ball. There's someone coming with blood and thunder ready to take me out of it. And I just think it's a really bad feature of play. And any coach who's managing a team should beat this out of the team really, really quickly. I remember doing it in a training session during the summer. David Herity, the former Kilkenny goalkeeper, started taking us for sessions, and we were doing this particular drill where you sort of have somebody in the middle. It's sort of a piggy in the middle sort of vibe, but you're not tapping it over the head. You're trying to sort of sidestep and hit a ball to someone. And a couple of the younger lads who were new enough to the panel, they were hitting these low scuttery balls. So I started going a little bit ape with them, because you're trying to say to them, don't kind of take away a second from me in terms of controlling the ball and being able to do something with it. And why would you increase the difficulty level with what I have to do? Give me that sympathetic pass. And that's something I think within, like we often talk about Cork Hurling, why haven't they kicked on to the next level? Why aren't the club teams doing what they, should be doing in Munster and All Ireland? And it's stuff like this, playing like direct ball up the line rather than switching the play and giving a sympathetic ball. This sort of stuff of playing low scuttery balls as well. I found that very frustrating. I don't know about you.
You're a sitting duck when you get a ball like that, an absolute sitting duck. Like, it's just, it's increasing the chances of a mistake. Like, it's a bad pass, and it's making you take a touch that you don't need to take, whereas you should have the ball in your hand, and you should be turned, and you should be gone. It's like a goalkeeper. Like, if a goalkeeper is giving a sharp hook out, it should be to hand. It shouldn't be down here and everything is, jittery and everything. Then you're just trying to, like, it's basically a mistake of a ball. The only time you'd be given a ball like that is, if it's around somebody or something like that, you can't hit it high. You're going to the left and you're hitting it to the ground to get it away from someone.
It's a needs must thing, if you're caught, that's when you do it. So yeah, that was certainly very frustrating. Overall, was it the highest quality game in the world? I mean, we've seen some finals in recent weeks, and sometimes you're like, that was brilliant stuff, that was average stuff, that's reflective, or it's a microcosm of the county team. Like that Galway final. Some of the championship that I saw wasn't blown away by that final. Very good, even though it was kind of low scoring. That Cork final, I thought it was really exciting stuff, but two teams that wouldn't exactly be striking fear into Ballyhale. Like the Tipperary final was very high quality. At the same time, I'm not sure either of those teams would be able to beat Ballyhale either. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't. But certainly, I'm not sure Blackrock would come out and be lifting trees.
Yeah, there's a difference between exciting and like good quality. Exciting means it was tight. It went extra time. You weren't really sure what was going to happen. I probably didn't see enough of it, and probably haven't seen enough of the Cork Championship to make a definitive kind of judgment on it. But like as I said to you before, the 114 to 15 point game can be much better quality than a high scoring game like the Cork final was. Plus, without being smart, from what I saw in the Galway final, they were really getting in each other's faces. Everything was really earned. There was big scores got in the Cork game. Whether some of them were earned as much as in the Galway final, I don't know. Every point you really had to do something fairly special to get it, or break a tackle, or do something. Whereas in Cork, I think it was more of an exhibition or a shootout maybe than the Galway game. But I don't think the Cork champions would be striking fear into anyone if there was provincial or All Ireland campaigns. But that's kind of been the case for a while now, to be fair.
Yeah, and like you always know, about the strength of a county championship when you see the sort of stuff that's happening, the sort of bad habits that are in teams. And like I've obviously mentioned that low scuttery ball with the Cork championship. And another thing would be, and this isn't relating to Cork, but in general, if you see a county championship where there's an awful lot of planting the feet and driving ball long, and it kind of amounts to 15-a-side golf, you know there's got a problem as well. You've got a problem as well. And again, get your comments in if you have any thoughts on that, or any championships where you think that that's the case, or even if you think that we're talking Cod's Wallop here, if we've got it wrong about the Cork championship completely. Michael Verney, the Westmeath hurling final was on at the weekend. Clonkill, they've done it again. They beat Castletown Gig in 3-16 to 2-16 after extra time. Brendan Murtaugh's the hero again with 12 points.
Yeah, Clonkill are just the old dogs for the hard road, in fairness to them. 3 titles in succession, and I was chatting to Paddy Dowdall on middle of last week, and he was just saying like they were really just, they knew that Castletown were the up and coming side. They've been so close in recent years, and he just literally said we're just doing whatever we can to get across the line, and kind of that's what they did. They've kind of just developed an unbelievable knack at getting over the line in big games. It didn't look like for a long time that they were going to, because Castletown and Gagan were the better team in normal time. Angus Clark, I think he missed a free to go 4 ahead, and I think in the next play Niall Mitchell got a goal to level it going into injury time to push it into extra time. Niall Mitchell, who nobody thought was going to play any part because of a shoulder injury. And then Castletown were actually lucky to get to extra time, because Clonkill had the ball in Anthony Price's hand in front of the goal in normal time when the referee blew for the final whistle. And then Castletown started extra time better. I think John Clark got a goal, Niall O'Brien hit in the sideline, and he kind of volleyed it at the back post from what I've heard. And they looked like they were going to push on. And then in the next play, Niall Mitchell got another goal. Like, imagine coming in the county final, having not played all year, and getting 2 goals. And I believe Darragh Egerton was unbelievable. Was unbelievable in defence for him. Just kept walking out with balls. In fairness, Niall Mitchell, I think he only got the ball in his hand a handful of times, but got those 2 goals, and that was crucial for them. They hit the last 3 points then with Brendan Murtaugh again, as we just said. He's one of these boys. It's like Owen Kelly and Tipperary, and obviously not comparing him to Owen Kelly class wise, but those guys that are dangerous forwards and are able to hit frees, and particularly dangerous from place balls. Like they'll never really age. They can still deliver. Brendan Murtaugh's late 30s, same as Owen Kelly. They can still keep delivering well into their late 30s, into their early 40s. And he just tipped it over the line. As I said, I was chatting to Paddy Dowdall. He was away on a tour of duty in Syria and only came back. He missed the group stages in hurling and football and only came back for the knockouts. He had 3 halves played in 3 different games before the football final. The football final went to extra time. He played every minute of it. Then he came off at half time of extra time yesterday, but he was still managed to be part of it. That's his 14th county title, 9 in hurling, 5 in football. I texted him last night just saying congratulations. He texted me back this morning saying he feels like he's been in a car crash this morning. But as I said to you in the preview show, kind of a mad story with Paddy. So Paddy got back just in time. He thought he'd be on a 6-month tour of duty. I think it was changed to about 3.5 months. But on the flip side of that, Neil Kirby, who's captain of Castletown, he was in quarantine in the middle of last week, getting ready to go out on his own tour of duty. He's actually in the same army unit as Paddy Dowdall, even though they're in opposition, and he ended up missing the match as a result of that. So going on his own peacekeeping mission overseas, which is obviously really, really disappointing from him, and maybe his influence would have helped Castletown a bit. But lots of kind of mad little subplots going on in that game.
Yeah, and like we've seen that there are a couple of clubs up and down the country who've just not really revealed that a player had a positive test or was underweighting or was waiting results on a test, and that sort of stuff is very disappointing because it potentially leaves other county championships at risk because some people have decided to just be selfish about that type of thing. Now, just back to Paddy Dowdall, 14 county medals, as I said, 9 in hurling and 5 in football, and those were with St. Lomans. I'd love to know from people out there, who's the player with the most county titles that you know of, both hurling and football, the whole lot? Because we were just kind of briefly looking through players that might have won a lot, like Mick Mackey and John Mackey. I think they won 20 county titles down there in Limerick. Owen Reid has a collection of medals. and I'm sure TJ Reid has plenty too, but like he has a load of them. Marina Buckley and Breach, Corkery. Leighton Glynn has 21 county titles in Wicklow, not to mention a Leinster title in on top of it. There are some players out there who have, you'd imagine that their mantelpieces are groaning under the weight of all the silver.
Unbelievable. As I said, I was at the Offaly football final yesterday. Alan McNamee won his 12th medal with Road, so he is actually joint third on the Offaly Senior Football Championship Roll of Honour with 2 other clubs. I think it's Walsh Island and someone else. Walsh Island and Ferban, it could be. He has the same number of titles as. So that's one man having the same number of titles as 2 clubs. Nicky Horn would have been one. Kilmessan seemed to win county finals every year. County hurling finals in Meath every year when I was growing up. He's a crazy amount of them. We said Aaron Kernan and Paul Hirty in Crossmaglen nearly have. Paul Hirty had 19, I think, when he retired, or something along those lines. Aaron Kernan was bidden for 14 or 15, I think, the other day. Be interesting to hear if there's anyone from Ballynacorty. I think they've won 36 or 37 in a row. Waterford Senior Football Championships, the ladies. Be interesting to see who has the most. Is there anybody? There's hardly anybody who has them all, but there might be someone who's standing alone with their certain number of titles more than anyone else. But it's a crazy kind of thing. I'd be interested to hear anyone from Four Roads in Roscommon as well. Clubs that were really, really dominant and they could have won, 12 or 13 titles in a 15-year period. It'd be interesting to hear. But there's a lot of them all around the country that have a crazy number of county titles, and they'll forever be immortalised within their own club and within their own county.
And then what about players that beforehand they've been almost ruled out of the match, and then they come in and have a defining influence? So you've mentioned those 2 goals for Niall Mitchell, and his manager Pat O'Toole had said the week before, Niall Mitchell is out, but otherwise I think we're fairly okay. He'll be a big loss. He's a fine hurler. In he comes, scores 2 goals. And you think over the years, there's some amount of managers who've told us he hasn't a hope, and in comes the guy and he makes a big impact.
Yeah, I have to say, like, if I was the manager, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, you wouldn't let the journalist ask the question, is Shane Stapleton out? You'd bring it up and say, no, we're in good shape for the weekend, but Shane is out, obviously. I'm gonna have to fabricate the truth here. Great hurler, but he's gonna be a big loss. And then, like, Niall Mitchell hadn't played all year, and anyone I was chatting to in Westmeath, he had no hope of playing. I don't know if he was wearing shoulder pads or what way he was strapped up, but he came in and got 2 goals. The pressure will be on for him now to play with Westmeath, I suppose. Like, the thing is about this is a funny one as well. When you come back from injury, maybe after getting an injection to play or playing when you weren't supposed to, the county manager, the club manager thinks you're fit to go back training on the Tuesday night or the Wednesday night when you mightn't be within an ass's roar of being able to go back training. You could be a month away from going back training. But he's kind of put himself in that position now. But it kind of got us thinking, as we said, about great kind of injury comebacks, lads kind of rising from the dead. I suppose Henry Shefflin and John Tennyson both suffering cruciate knee ligament injuries in the weeks before the 2010 All-Ireland final, and then miraculously playing, having been down with Ger Hartman down in Limerick, and all the hoo-ha around that, and people saying that basically Lazarus had rose from the dead when Henry exited the tunnel in Nolan Park 10 days before the All-Ireland final. Like, people were like rubbing their eyes and couldn't believe what they would seen, because they saw him limping out of Croke Park 2.5 weeks before that. Funny enough, I was chatting to Owen Kelly about that recently, Tips Owen Kelly, and he kind of thought it was funny. He said all the focus and talk was on Shefflin and Tennyson in 2010, and he said he woke up on the Wednesday morning after training with Tip and he couldn't get out of bed. He said he couldn't put on his shoes, he couldn't touch his toes. He said he got himself up to his feet by climbing up the wardrobe, with his hands up the wardrobe, and climbed up. And he said he was like, he literally couldn't move and had to get to John Casey later that day and get his back loosened out a bit. But I suppose he wasn't in the public kind of spotlight. All the focus was on Kilkenny. Another one, the back is usually a one that's kind of focused on a lot, because when your back goes, like, it's just debilitating to your whole body. Burr played Attenroy in, I'm going to say, 2003 down in Ennis, and Brian Wheelan had put out his back that week getting turf or lifting turf or something like that, and the rumour around Burr was that he was in a wheelchair 3 or 4 days before the match, and he came out centre back on the Sunday, and Ennis was absolutely outstanding. Now, he could have been in absolute ribbons in pain, but it was just like, oh, will he, won't he? Is he going to be able to play? And he comes out centre back and he's moving like an absolute dream and looked like there was nothing wrong with him. I'm sure there are certain people or instances where you recall you thinking, how is that lad out in the field? From everything I had heard, there was no hope in playing.
Yeah, I remember Richie Hogan, was it 2015? I think he had done his back badly, and I think even a couple of days before the All-Ireland semi-final against Waterford, he thought he was completely out of the game. He ended up being man of the match. I think that was around the time he might put up that picture of his feet. You know the way people were trying these anti-blister socks, but he ended up with his feet in absolute ribbons altogether. I'd have to give credit to Paul Schutte, who ripped his hamstring more or less off the bone in, I think it was the Leinster final in 2017, and he had not played at all up until Paddy's Day with the All-Ireland final, and I think he had barely just come back training, maybe a couple of days beforehand. He ended up being our man of the match, played extra time and everything. He was absolutely unbelievable. Obviously then his hamstring more or less came off the bone then in the replay, and someone stepped in for him towards the end of the first half, but we won't say anything about that. But there are plenty of them, like Michael Cahalane from Cork. I mean, he had a rare heart condition and he was meant to be, retired at a very young age. He comes in and scores a goal in the Munster Championship. I think it was against Tipperary. Noel McGrath, he obviously had cancer in 2015. He came back for the All-Ireland semi-final. I think we all remember Anthony Cunningham coming over to him after the game, the Galway manager. Yeah, so there are plenty, and let us know anyone else that you've thought of or any other incidents where a guy, Lazarus, rose from the dead, as you said yourself there. The Kilkenny Junior Hurling final was on at the weekend. All-Ireland champions Conahy Shamrocks, they finally won the county title. They obviously got through last year because they had to represent the county. O'Loughlin's B weren't allowed to do that, but they beat Dixborough's second side.
Yeah, no, I think I said it to you last week and you kind of scoffed at it, but I think this will mean as much as the All-Ireland title to Conahy. Winning an All-Ireland without winning your county title, I don't think it sat well with them, and there was a bit of pressure on them coming into the game, but they got the job done. By all accounts, Dixborough had started really, really well and looked the livelier, kind of sharper side earlier on, but they missed a good few chances, as I said, despite kind of looking the better side earlier on and despite probably having the better panel. But James Bergen came up trumps for Conahy yet again. 2-7, 2-2 from play. He was captain as well. Kieran Mooney, who was a former Kilkenny minor, was brilliant at full forward. I think him and Simon Callanan was cornerback there were two of their probably best players outside of maybe James Bergen. Tom Phelan was very, very good as well, left-handed wing forward. The three Healy brothers played for Conahy. I think Alan was injured. Alan would have grown up on the same minor and 21 teams as Cha and John Tennyson. Blister and pace, but has had a lot of injuries in recent years. He was injured but came on and got a crucial point, and despite Dixborough kind of playing really well earlier on, Conahy got 2 goals in 60 seconds, and they kind of just held a slight advantage the whole way through. For the Borough, Davy Ryan, who I know very well, great lad down there for the Borough, he was their best player. He scored 10 points, 4 from play, but they kind of just didn't deliver like their senior side, the week before. There was a lot expected and they just didn't deliver. They had a big loss during the week as well. Aaron Duggan, who'd be their number one goalie, would have been their goalie in the senior final 7 or 8 years ago. He got injured playing soccer, so they had to put their selector Philly Hogan in goals, and it's just a big loss to change keeper, particularly with an experienced keeper like that. But fair play to Conahy. As I said, the pressure was on them to get over the line, and they'd be delighted to be up intermediate now. For Dixborough, difficult end to what looked like a really promising year. I know that their minors are still in the county final and that, but they would have had high hopes of winning senior and junior and kind of walked away empty-handed without either, which is a bitter pill for them to swallow. Yeah,
so a 7th Longford county title in 8 years for Wolftones. They beat Slashers 3-10 to 1-6. Goals from Evan Tully, Matthew O'Donoghue and Daniel Connell. They were decisive there. The Leitrim Hurling final, Carrick, they beat Manor Hamilton 2-15 to 18 points after extra time. 4 county titles on the bounce now at this stage. Saw an interview with James Glancy on Leitrim Daily, and he stepped up deep into injury time when his team were 3 points behind. He smashed the ball to the net and that forced extra time. So Carrick ended up getting through with, was there an unusual goal to decide it?
Yeah, it was unusual kind of way to force extra time, and then I think the match report said it was a bizarre goal in the 4th minute of added time in extra time, gave Carrick their 35th title. at a sun-kissed Sean McDermott at Park. I tell you, it was the only place that was sun-kissed, but it was on Saturday, to be fair. Carrick lost Colin Martin 7 minutes from time, and that handed kind of Clooney the advantage, and they led in injury time before James McGrath awarded referee James McGrath, who I'm assuming is the Westmeath referee James McGrath, which often happens in some counties where they bring in an outside ref, awarded a 30-metre free, and James Clancy fired to the net. I think James Clancy kind of said it was the only real puck he got nearly all day, but as I said before, and I said earlier on the show, if you have a good free taker and you have an eye for goal like that, you could be out of a game, you could be playing 2 out of 10, you could have done nothing, and you can deliver at the end like that.
Well, you've half of the bargain held up already. You're doing nothing. Of course, you can't take frees either.
That's it. I'm just a waste of time altogether. Like, there's no saving grace for me. They're not going to keep me on because he might do something or put over a line ball.
Yeah, you're not easy on the eye either.
Yeah, no, you'd be the first one called ashore, unfortunately.
Okay, the Donegal final. I'm wearing the old Donegal colours here. Setanta beat St. Eunice, so goals from Mark Devine and Josh McGee sent them en route to a third title in 4 years, I should say. For St. Eunice, Kevin Keeley, he got a couple of goals late on and made it look tighter than it probably was. Davin Flynn had scored 7 points for Setanta. Declan Coulter had scored 5, we all know about him, the Armagh man, and Jared Gilmore, he scored 4 as well. Conor O'Grady got most of the scores for St. Eunice, 9 points, 8 of them were from frees. As I said, Kevin Cooley with the 2 goals, and Ryan Hilferty with 2 points, Cormac Finn with 1.
Yeah, so this looks it looks tighter than it actually was, to be fair. 6 points is very flattering to St. Eunice. Setanta started like a house on fire. They were 1-1 up inside the first 2 minutes, and that kind of set the tone for the day. They were 11 ahead by half time. Eunice, by all accounts, were sluggish, didn't get up to the level of previous games. The 2 O'Donnell brothers were not involved with Eunice. They were playing for Donegal, I believe, in a challenge match, a football challenge match over the weekend, which is always the problem with dual players, particularly when football is obviously their main code, and hurling is going to be deemed a poor relation, particularly in a county like Donegal. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. I believe Mark Callan and Niall Cleary, Offaly native, were very good in defence. Davin Flynn got 6 from play. He was man of the match. Mark Devine got the other goal, as you said, and kind of Eunice got 2 goals in the last 10 minutes that made it look an awful lot tighter than it actually was. But Setanta are having, taken a good while before they were able to get their first county title, and maybe waited 5 or 6 years in the middle of that, are really getting dominant in Donegal now. It was a crossroads team against a town team, but Setanta, the only hurling club in Donegal, on top again.
Yeah, and in the Louth final, Knockbridge, their 12th title, they beat St. Feckin's of Thurman Feckin 3-16 to 2-14. 4th final defeat in a row, I believe, for St. Feckin's. Knockbridge had been 7 points down early in the second half when Peter Fortune found the net, but it was 2-6 without reply from Knockbridge, and that set them up. The first goal came from man of the match Shane Fennell, and captain Garrett Hall got the second. So that's about the height of it, Michael Verney. Have we it all said?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because we're running now a county finals now over the next couple of weeks, and there's going to be a couple of gap weeks before we get back to the inter-county hurling. If we do, hopefully we will. But just high drama again this weekend. Some brilliant advertisements for the club game. It's hard beaten as well, and it's a different. It's different this year. It's great because at least all these county finals are getting played off. We don't know, as I said, whether the county is going to be played off. But I think everyone's a club player, as you said before, and they'll all be happy as long as their county finals are played, regardless of what happens thereafter. Okay, thanks very much, Michael Verney. Brought to you by orgaretro.com. Remember, if you want to get these jerseys or any other ones, go to orgaretro.com and put in the promo code OurGame and you'll get 15% off. Done.